Okay, let's review some core concepts from the course and make sure that we are ready to earn some extra credit on our student learning outcomes quiz. The first concept to review is the sociological imagination. And so this is all about where we are at in our own lives in relation to the larger historical context of our times. So it's the intersection of history and biography, and it's understanding our own experiences in a larger social context. So, for instance, your age, when you are taking this class and learning about sociology and out and about in the world, is going to impact your life in a very different way than my age, even though we're living in the exact same moments based upon where we're at in our own lives. Our perceptions and experiences are going to be really, really impacted by society in different ways. So let's think about this. I am 43 years old as I'm recording this, and you may be younger, older, probably much younger. But I have lived in a world because of my age and stage where I didn't always have a smartphone, right? And so I would have to use things like, I don't know, a landline. Actually, I still have a home phone, true confession, and you will have to grab that out of my cold, dead hands because I'm sorry, I love my home phone number. And I'm really terrible because I give it out a lot, and then people will say that I texted me and I didn't respond. I'm like, oh, what phone number do you have? And they tell me my home phone number, and I'm like, oh, that's not my cell phone. So that idea of the fact that I would even conceive of having a home phone number is indicative of my age, right? So that experience of communication, which has changed so drastically. Think about your grandparents versus your parents versus you versus the future generations. Think about your age in this particular year. And what if it was 100 years ago? How different would your life be? Being the person that you are, right? Because you're still that person, but how differently would your life be shaped by that moment in history? Think about 100 years from now. How different would your life be shaped in that moment of history? That's the sociological imagination, constantly looking at our personal experiences in a larger way, looking at it in relation to what is going on in society today. The next thing we need to review are the sociological paradigms, the core principles in sociology. And so a paradigm, again, is the guiding principle that helps us examine and understand the social world around us. And there's three of them, as I'm sure you remember from the beginning of the semester: social conflict, structural functionalism, and symbolic interactionism. So I'm going to go through them quickly, one by one. Social conflict is a macro level paradigm, which means you're studying large scale phenomenon. It's not about little individual interactions. It's about looking at society from a broad standpoint. And when we're talking about social conflict, we're talking about inequalities. It's all about the fact that the premise of society is about the fact that we do not have enough resources for everyone, and people have control of those resources and do not necessarily share, right? Whether it might be money. So how many people have an exorbitant amount of wealth, and how many people are struggling financially. And there's a great deal of control involved in having amassed a lot of wealth. Even something like social media. When you think about a scarce resource in social media, it's attention, right? It's views and eyeballs on your whatever it is whatever video you've recorded, whatever post you're sharing, things like that. Whether you're a company trying to generate interest in your product, or you're a person trying to build a business based upon your social media usage, like that scarce resource is attention. And so social conflict is all about inequalities, whether it's financial, whether it's whether it's crucial to our lives, something like water, or just even like a healthy environment, like that can be a scarce resource. And so who has control over that? That is what social conflict is all about, inequalities. Next is structural functionalism, again, a large-scale macro-level paradigm. And so now we're talking about the fact that society is all about interrelated parts that work together to create a strong society. And so it can be things like our education system, which we are part of right now as we are taking a class. It can be our religious beliefs and the religion that we subscribe to, our economy and our politics. It can be the medical institution, with all different aspects of our society working together is what you are analyzing when you use the structural functional premise, is that you are looking at society as all these gigantic parts working together. And a key part of that is if one institution is weak, it's going to impact all of society. If our education system is very, very weak, it's going to impact the family because we need to, a lot of times, have a level of educational attainment to be a person who can earn a living wage in society. We need a level of educational attainment to, work in the medical institution, right? Our medical institution with its healthcare professionals is like counting on our education system to strongly educate, our future generations, our current and future generations of physicians and nurse practitioners and nurses and everything. Like those two things really count on each other. So if one is weak, if our medical institution was weak, we'd all be really, really struggling with various illnesses, which some may argue in a lot of ways, a lot of people are. And so again, it is all about the fact that society has these interrelated parts working together, and we count on every one of them working well. Last is symbolic interactionism, and now we're talking about a micro level, smaller phenomenon paradigm. And so now we're talking that society is all about the everyday interactions that we have, whether it's, for instance, right now, I'm talking really, really fast as I usually do. But I'm saying all of these words that you understand because language is symbols, and we have that shared like symbol systems that is the English language that I'm utilizing right now. Not very well, but I'm trying. A lot of times we are attaching meaning to all these symbols, whether it's our words, whether it's our clothing, whether it's our, again, we could go back to like social media and all of the various symbols that are utilized there. And so thinking through the fact that we are constantly utilizing and understanding these symbols to communicate with each other, kind of the premise of society is the fact that we have a society because we have these shared symbol systems. And here's the thing, these symbols are always changing. There are words that we can use nowadays that that could possibly have meant something completely different 10 years ago, or there's words that are in our future that we can't even conceive of that could be crucial to our understanding of the world. Something like hashtag, right? So the number symbol that has always been utilized, whether it's on a phone or to indicate numbers, now means something completely different. Think about 15 years ago. There was no hashtag. It did not accomplish like linking together various people's posts and sharing on social media. What could the future hold that we can't even conceive of right now, that we'll completely understand and count on? So that idea of these symbols are constantly popping up, they're constantly fading in to the background as we stop using certain ones, whether it's clothing or something otherwise. So they're constantly changing, and they're the basis of our interaction. So it's what we use to interact with each other. Okay, last concept that is crucial to society is culture. And so this is the way of life that people value and work to teach their children so that this carries on. And so a lot of times this can include the norms and perceptions that we have about the world around us. I always say that norms are like unwritten rules. It's things you have to follow, but it's not like we get a guidebook on how to be a person who doesn't make other people feel uncomfortable. Something like personal space, right? You don't stand or sit too close to someone, especially if you don't know them, because that's really awkward. And if so, somebody who you don't know, or even sometimes, quite honestly, somebody you do know, is standing closer to you than you would feel comfortable with, you can't call them on it like, hey, get away. You might try to kind of move yourself away quietly. And if they keep moving towards you, that's even weirder. But that idea of personal space is a norm that can vary between cultures, but is something that if it's broken, people don't follow it, you feel very, very uncomfortable. And so that's a huge part of culture, is teaching ourselves and going forward, our future generations, what our values are and what our beliefs are. So there's different parts of culture. There's material, where it's the things that you can, hold in your hands. Things a lot of times like food, the delicious foods that we that fill our hearts and souls with joy, right? Because they might be from our family heritage and things. But then it's also the intangible things like belief systems, and the way that our world is shaped. The way that we see the world can be very much shaped by our culture. So that's a quick review of a few crucial concepts, and by all means, feel free to go back and forth through this to make sure that you feel comfortable and ready to earn some extra credit.